All right, here we are at episode 14. I'm with Jane and Greg. They're going to talk about their daughter, Nicole, forever 19, who passed away just a year and a half ago almost. And they're going to talk about her story and then what they've been doing since then. And amazing family here. I know you guys personally. It was very tough when I got the call from our friend Lynn and that she told me, Mike, I have a couple that I know that I think you guys worked at the same gym or something like that. And she said, I know you lost your son, Preston. I've already known him. Now I know them and Nicole. That's two people. And then to let you guys know, I don't know if you know about the other father that lost his son in Flower Mound. And I went to a funeral, Preston. He worked out too with Lynn, but he was 32 years old.
It's
And
recent, I think, more
yeah,
recent.
yeah. So it just shows that, we all think it's not going to happen to us. And now it's getting so that everybody knows somebody now. And here, Nicole, Preston, and the other Preston, they all know Lynn. So I mean, that's sad that it happens. And we're such a small community. And so I'm going to let you guys introduce yourself. Jane, you're better looking than Greg, so you get to go first. So,
Yeah. Woo!
so
My name is Jane Gray. Nicole is my fourth child. She is forever 19. She passed away April 23rd of 2024 of fentanyl poisoning. Nicole struggled with her mental health. It started fairly early, around 14. We were aware of those issues and treating them. But as she got older, she internalized quite a bit, and she started moving toward numbing that herself through smoking weed. And apparently, she was introduced to a Percocet in her senior year of high school. And if not in that moment, it was pretty immediate that her addiction started um, to that Percocet, which had fentanyl in it, and she actively sought it out after that. She did go to once I found out, she went to an intensive outpatient program. She was sober about 100 days. She relapsed. At that point, we put her into a rehab in Tennessee. She stayed there for 30 days and went into a sober living. And altogether, that round was sober for 6 months. Um, but she did have another relapse. And I think she relapsed for about 4 days until fentanyl took her um, back in April.
and before I let you go, Greg, so she got addicted to opioids at one point. And I'm gonna bring up because I remember Nicole, she was the very first waterfall I did in Carson City. And I remember right as I pulled up, I had, the rest of the Texas Against Fentanyl. There were six magnets on my car, all of our boys, six boys. And when I pulled up, the lady that walked out, she goes, "What does this forever thing mean?" And I said, "Well, that's my son. He died of a fentanyl poisoning." And the first thing out of her mouth was, "What was it like raising a drug addict?" And I said, "Well, he was not a drug addict, but I said that's the biggest misconception." I said, and I pulled out this. This is the stack of everybody that I read at the waterfalls, 300 people. And I said, the biggest misconception that most people think is that everybody is a drug addict and that they made a choice to do this and they're not worth it. And I just said, that's the biggest misconception is most people that are drug addicts that get addicted to opioids, they're not dying when they're using. It's when they get clean and sober. And then they get a little tolerance level down and then they go out and take a pill. And so that's the biggest fight that I'm trying to fight now, even with Sarah, when she becomes the drug czar. She asked me, what's the biggest thing that we can tackle? And I said, the stigma and shame. You know, I know that Nicole, and I talk to high schools all the time, Nicole didn't say, Mom, when I grow up, I want to be a drug addict. That nobody chose that life. And that's what drives me nuts is that that most society thinks that drug addicts made this choice and they're second class citizens. And that's the biggest stigma that
So, the addiction itself is just a behavior. That's just
right,
helping the pain that they really have from their trauma that's not resolved.
right.
So that's really what's at the root of addiction. And yes, and I agree. Before Greg goes, I think shame is essential to address, and the stigma. for me anyway, that what I've learned from Nicole is the stigma of needing to hide and to isolate and to be so ashamed of this disease that they have and so ashamed of their relapse that they stay isolated to where nobody can help them. Nobody knows they're hiding and ultimately they're alone.
Right.
And that's really sad.
And the shame, I will say, because I was an addict back in the 80s with drugs. I was. And so I know what it's like. And I know that a lot of the other issues that we come across is that they blame the parents. They said it's just bad upbringing. And and I've said it almost every event I've ever been to. I mean, if you guys didn't love Nicole, if you were bad parents, then why have you been out there fighting for the past year and 5 months to do this? Because you loved her. So, I mean, it's,
Love her. And addiction is not a parenting error.
yeah,
Um, and unfortunately, love cannot save an addict. The
yeah,
only thing that can save them is them making a choice to get well.
yeah, exactly.
So anyway, carry on.
Yeah, I'm Greg Cruz. I'm Jane's husband, and I was Nicole's stepfather. Um,
You
had the
still are.
honor. Well, yeah, I am because I don't know. Mike, we were talking a little bit earlier. Uh, I guess just the grief kind of rolls out pretty hard in the beginning, and we got started early in doing things. But for 9 years, Nicole was my little girl. She was the one that I had living at home, and you know, to to watch what she went through, to be part of that, and just tag on to the conversation about stigma and shame. Um, and all you got to do is look at a picture of Nicole, and that's not the stereotype that everybody has in their mind when it comes to somebody that has mental health and addiction problems. I mean, she was a beautiful girl. She was talented. She was loving. She was fun. And unfortunately, she had some tough things happen in her life that made it so difficult for her to feel like she could live a normal life and deal with the trauma that she, was dealt.
It's when you brought up the picture of like Nicole,
Mm.
you guys have done this before. I've done it a million times where you bring a picture of your child and you set it up at a talk. And
Mm.
I always laugh because I see the people, especially the students, they'll walk by after the assembly or something and they'll see a picture and they're looking at it and I'm saying, that's not what you pictured this person would look like. And they said, no. I said, you kind of expected somebody to be slumped over with a needle hanging out of their arm, living on the streets. And they said, pretty
No
much.
teeth and dirty,
Yeah, exactly.
just disheveled, and that's not the case at all. I mean, fentanyl is the biggest taker of lives for kids 17 to what 34, and um, a lot of those people are businessmen.
Yep.
They're college students. They're not dumb.
Nope.
They're not poor. Um, it's just like Jane said, it happens so quick. The addiction, it's so powerful.
And now on this side of it, looking back, it's so much easier to see the progression of even
Mm.
her change. It's almost like that frog in boiling water syndrome. Like you kind of really don't really see it because you're living with it and you're so confused and it's just so hard to understand. The push pull and the conflict and the relationship and the where is my kid? I know they're in there somewhere, but now it's easier to see, the progress of, oh, you know what, she actually really, her moods really were steadily changing. Her appearance really was steadily changing. Her relationships were steadily changing, almost to where it all became very chaotic. But like you're so in it,
Mm.
Yeah.
it's hard to get off. It's like that spin out, right? You're just going around and around, and
Yeah.
the floor has dropped down, and you're sticking to the walls, you know. And finally, the ride stops, and you're like, oh, okay, that happened.
Yeah, and I think part of that which kind of clouds the view of parents is thinking, you know, kids go through a lot of crap. And you, I mean, a lot of times we thought, well, this is just, you know, a teenage behavior. But like Jane said, we started seeing patterns develop, and some of those behaviors didn't change, they got worse. And that's where we started really thinking about it. And had it not been for, you know, somebody talking to Jane,
Yeah.
um,
Two very
yeah,
brave people had the courage to tell me what was going on, and I'm ever grateful. Um, but you know, these are the things that we're working toward now, that knowledge that you get after. Okay, so I lost my child. Now what do I do now? How can I help somebody else try to not go through this? You know, and so that's where I think the advocacy piece comes in of what do I do? Because even in our town here of Flower Mound, Nicole is one of, I think, five
from one high school.
from one high school of students who have died by fentanyl over I think a 4 year period.
Right.
That's in my backyard. I never knew that. I mean,
And there's only two high schools in Flower Mound, if I'm correct.
Right.
yeah.
She,
And I don't know the stats of the other one, but I can make an assumption here. But like, you know, it's here and it's not going away. And if anything, it's just going to get worse because, you know, the cartels are going to exceed the knowledge of what we have, and we're not going to have the ability to respond like we can with Narcan. I mean, it's ever changing and ongoing. So we have to be very proactive to have a community, to be open with each other, to talk with each other, to advocate with each other, to know our children's friends and to know our children's friends' parents and have a village. I think it's so important to have a village.
you said something, Jane, where you said you jumped right into how you can help somebody out. And I think that's the reason we're doing these videos. But what's amazing is you guys have been doing this for a year and a half almost now. And I've seen so many people that want to jump into it and then they get burnt out real quick because they didn't grieve. So I do want to say, what was your grieving process like, if you don't mind me asking?
Yeah, so
Okay.
maybe I should be transparent here. I am a clinical mental health therapist, and so that doesn't make me an expert in grief, but it helps me to know that I know that there's tools out there and I have to apply them if I'm going to maintain my job,
Right.
right? So for me, the most important thing was learning to balance. I can't saturate myself in advocacy, but I can just, you know, find the progression that works for me as long as I maintain balance. I don't know if that will change as years go on because, like you said, it's only been a year and a half. And I think we've done some really significant things.
We have.
And so I think it's just, I know as a therapist, avoidance does not work, or it works till it doesn't work anymore.
Exactly. Yeah.
And so we have to expose ourselves to the stuff out there that hurts. And you know, Nicole was an example of that. She held so much pain inside of her, and I watched the demise of her because of the pain that she wouldn't address. She was so scared to address it. She just she lost her father at a very early age to suicide at age 7. And it just was something that was stuck in her body. That longing, that loss, that emptiness in her heart. And she just didn't want to talk about it. She just wanted to avoid it. She kept saying, I'm fine, I'm over that. Mm-hmm. So, you know, I mean, we have to sit with the yuck.
Yep.
Of all the stuff that comes when we lose a child. It's the worst thing in the entire world. And you know, it's very difficult in a marriage, especially when, you know, it's a blended marriage. I'm not gonna lie, like it's even in a stable marriage where you know the family of origin is intact, it's hard. You know, I mean, research shows that high percentage of marriages quit.
No. You're exactly right. And that's and I was Greg, when we did that walk with Winning the Fight, I think it was last October. Well, it was a run, but you and I walked. I'll admit.
Yeah, that's right.
So that's fine. But I just remember how you opened up and you talked about it, and I'll admit there's not a lot of fathers that do get out there, and for you to actually share and talk, because you're exactly right, Jane. My youngest son died in 2005, and I hid it for 12 years. I didn't hide it, but I didn't talk about it. I was in denial. And what happened? Bam, I got a divorce. And that's the first thing that I noticed is when I started doing this, everywhere I would go is like, where are the fathers? Where's your husband? Where's the father? Where are they? Well, they won't talk about it. They're men, and they don't share their feelings. And I've always said, my next door neighbor, two doors down, they lost their daughter, Nicole, as well, in 1990, no, in 2004. And she died in a car crash on graduation night. No alcohol, no drugs involved. And they always brought up that if I didn't, John always said, if I didn't talk about it, I probably would have lost my marriage. And it is, and you're right, a high success rate of divorce because men don't talk about it. And I'm a living person that can say that. I lost my marriage to
Yeah.
Wesley's mother. And it stinks, but for you guys to sit there, I mean, Greg, I love that you're here. Nothing about you, Jay, but I'm sick of getting talking to the mothers all the time. But it's always nice to have a father, and I'll always say that. But no, I just applaud you both that you are sticking together, and I love that. I wish there were more fathers that got out and spoke, just because I can relate to the man most of the time instead of the woman.
Well,
Well,
I think it's biblical, you know.
Exactly.
It was again, it was Nicole's initial wound was the father wound. I know as a therapist, the father wound comes up over and over and over again. I think men and the role of men that they play in families and as fathers is just massive.
When you mentioned that, because her biological father died when she was 7, is that what you said? Yeah. I think there are 8 people that I have now met that have lost a daughter and their father committed suicide or died. And and I always say, when I do the talks and everything, why does someone become an addict? Of course, it's mental health. Could it be that you had an operation, you got a pain pill, you got started that way? But a lot of it is mental health and choice and, peer pressure, whatever it is. But I start seeing, you're the 8th person that's in this stack at the waterfalls that the daughter lost a biological father due to death or suicide. And so I
Um,
applaud you, Greg, for
well,
what you're doing. I think.
and Jane went through a very different journey than I did. And I think she's still deep into it in that, it's a daily thing for her. And it's like, I mean, she shared with me a while back, the first thought in the morning is
US.
Nicole's
Yeah.
dead.
Yeah, he asked me, "What's the first thing you think
Yeah.
in the morning?" I said, "Nicole's dead."
And,
She is.
I can't imagine waking up with that thought. But wherever I go, especially around this community, there's there are things that I see that remind me, and I still get sad,
Yeah.
and grieve over because she was a fun girl. She had a zest for life, and but she had this 900-pound ball that was chained to her, that she couldn't get away from. And we like to think that she tried, but the only thing that could get her away from that was the fentanyl.
Yeah.
And Jane and I took a trip up to Arkansas last year, and we stopped along the way and met our server was looking, and she looked at both of us have tattoos on our forearms, and they're very similar. And she looked at James and she says, "Oh my gosh, that's beautiful." And they're memorial tattoos for Nicole that we got just as a symbol. And what's in common is that they both have a colorful monarch.
Yeah.
And Jane started explaining the story behind them, and she just started crying. And come to find out that she was a professional down here in Dallas that lost her sister to fentanyl And she moved up there to, this little town in Northeast Texas to take care of her nephews and nieces. And it was just sad. And then when we got to where we were going, we met somebody that was dealing with things. And, those things bring up grief, but I find the more that I say Nicole's name and the more that I talk to about the challenges, that she had, is the better I feel, you know. Um, never gonna forget her.
Right.
But we
but
do
it
need
is
to,
very different. Yeah.
we need to talk about it. We need to process it. And that's where, again, I think you move into the advocacy piece of, okay, how can I talk about it and, you know, get good out of it or do good for other people? Because I think that that helps us with our own identity of dealing with the loss of a child. Like, we want to keep our child alive, but we also want to keep loving them,
Exactly.
right? And we love them through the acts that we can do according to their name, right? And so, um, I guess I can transition here. Nicole died in a motel out in Fort Worth. Um, and about a month after she passed, I received a Facebook message from a woman who, her son died in the same motel. And she said, hey, hope this isn't offensive, but do you have a daughter that died at the executive inn
Yeah.
motel out in Fort Worth? And I said, yeah. And she said, well, her son died there too. So she and I made a connection, and then she and Greg and I all came together because what we discovered is that 9 people had lost their life at this motel in 4 years.
Yeah. 4 years.
4 years, 9 people have overdosed and passed away, and nothing's been done about it.
Yeah, and I have to say, first off, when we found out where she had died, um, the managers or the owner of the motel, they were not very cooperative.
Yeah.
Not at all. And, after Jane had met this other lady that had lost her son, we had another friend start digging into that hotel and gave us this bunch of data.
Mm-hmm.
And the more data that we got, the more angry I got.
Well,
and the more I felt like we got to do something about this.
but I think also what we discovered is that MedStar, the director of MedStar, as well as a community officer, had contacted me saying, do something, do something, do something. I'm like, wait, what? What's your job? Why aren't you guys doing something? They're like, we can't do anything. And I'm like, what the hell? Like, I don't get it. Like, I need to be PD now or what? But again, back to what we discussed a little bit before we started, is it is the family's voice that is going
Exactly.
to our nation and the war that is going on with fentanyl.
Yeah, we are up front. We're the front line of this, and I do want to jump back into the hotel thing. But something you said earlier, Jane, and where you and Greg, you both said this, that you go out and you saw the tattoos, the server saw the tattoos, and you bring it up. And everybody always asks me that knows me, they said, you're going 100 miles an hour, Mike, every day, speaking somewhere, wherever you are. And Jane, I'll ask you this because you're in this business. It's therapy for me to talk about it. I mean, to be honest, yes, am I trying to make people aware of it and help them? Yes, but also it does help me. It's like a therapy for me to discuss the situation that I've been through. So,
I'm honored to be able to talk about Nicole. I'm not ashamed of her story.
okay.
I have so much compassion for what she went through. I have a sticker on my car. Greg has a sticker too. It says, fentanyl killed my child, protect yours. And it has Nicole's face. And I will tell you, I have been followed and stalked because of that sticker in a good way. I have had people stop in front of my house saying, "Hey, I followed you. Would you come be on our program out, my podcast, or would you come do this article?" People are becoming curious, and that makes me feel good.
Yeah.
I always thank people. Thank you for stopping. Thank you for talking. Thank you for acknowledging. Thank you for the opportunity to talk about Nicole. Usually at Christmas time, I always get some Christmas cards stuck under my windshield wiper. I'm so sorry for your loss. I don't know, a few months ago, we were parked at church and someone, I guess, had taken a picture of my car and put it on one of the Facebook pages local and said, "Oh my gosh, like I feel so sad for this. I don't know who they are." And of course, then, "Oh, I knew that person." And, I think people are curious, but I think very similar to my own experience, it wasn't within touch for me. I didn't understand that it was right here behind my shoulder. And, I think when I made that documentary that we made, I think something I'm going to say out loud because I think it's really important. Yes, I'm a therapist. Um, and there were several comments on there of like, she's a therapist. She should know. Why wouldn't she know this? She should know what that smell is, or she should know what the paraphernalia is. I'm like, just because I'm a therapist doesn't mean I'm a addiction specialist.
Right. Yeah.
You know, I don't know all the things. These are all experiential things where you learn as you go along.
Yeah, exactly. It's oh, well,
Yeah, Mike, I've had the same experience. Matter of fact, about a month ago, I'm driving to go to a meeting, and this guy, I'm stopped at a stoplight in a trail of traffic, and this guy inches up to me and says, "Roll down your window." Well, who knows what that means
Yeah, right.
except us old guys, right?
the role that
Right, yeah. Anyways, he says, "Your daughter, what's her name?" And I told him, and oh my gosh, I almost started bawling because somebody's asked me her name.
right.
And he shouted out, and this is where I'm so thankful for faith. He shouted out, "I'm praying for you."
Oh,
And, and he stuck side by side with me so that he could communicate with my name's Gary. What's your name? I mean, it's just an awesome experience when people are curious and interested in that.
it, it- it's awesome. I think it's godly. It's very godly and it's very faithful that we can actually get out there and share. Because I do myself. I talk every day to somebody. I mean, I did a video the other day. I hit my 31st national park, and I've talked about Preston to everybody in a national park. I've talked to whoever sees the magnet on my car or has the fentanyl kills or Preston's website, whatever it is. And yeah. And I always tell people, if you can share the story once in your lifetime about your loved one, you're saving a life. Some of us are doing it every day. And I was going to quit after the national parks. I remember that. I just said, after that, if I can save one life, and I got a lot of notice and people said you helped. And I thought I was going to be done, but it happened different.
Hey, by the way, I need a couple more of those fentanyl kills stickers.
Oh, do you?
I put one on my work truck and it started peeling off. So
Oh, God. I think these.
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
I'll get you some, definitely. Um, now I mean, you're doing amazing work, both of y'all, and it's hard to find people that do want to get out there and talk. I know we all do our different things. I mean, some people have done, like I'm doing a video with somebody soon that their son died in Kentucky, and he was a bass fisherman. So they do a Bram's bass fishing tournament every year, and we all have our own little outlets to do things. Uh, Going back to the hotel. I was telling Jane before you walked in, we just went to Florida, my mom and I, and we came back through Smoky Mountain National Park.
Oh,
And so we went through the park and then we stopped in Nashville to spend the night. I found this hotel in Nashville. It looked beautiful online, brand new, and it was outside the airport in Nashville. We check in, and all night long, we could smell marijuana. And we see people coming and going in and out of the room all night long. And I went outside and I could see that they were walking the streets and doing stuff like that. It was a drug dealer's den. And I went to the office and I said, I see the cameras everywhere. That y'all know what's going on that's happening. I mean, I don't know if the drug dealers are paying them, saying, here, keep your mouth shut so we can run a little business out of the hotels. And I thought of, because what if you guys have done, with that hotel in Fort Worth? And I just thought back and I was sitting there telling my mom, and of course she has Alzheimer's, but I kept saying, Nicole, and she's like, no, I don't. I mean, she half the time doesn't know Preston, but it made me think about that. I said, this is sad that people know this is going on. And I don't know the outcome of what's happened with what you guys have done in Fort Worth, but it happens in every city. I mean,
Yeah.
y'all know that. And it's,
I'll let Jane tell you a little bit about what happened. I mean, like she said, we started that ball rolling in the city of Fort Worth. And one of the reasons was because of the beat officer, the neighborhood officer there said, please do something,
yeah.
please.
That was a surreal
And
moment.
it was.
It was a surreal
Um,
moment.
and so I started digging and found, there's a state law that deals with nuisance abatement, and it's a lot of other things besides just drugs. But, of course, that brought us in there. And I started reading through that and reached out to the city, didn't hear back for a couple of weeks. But in the meantime, I contacted Ben Baumgartner, our state legislator from the Flower Mound area, and asked him, look, what can we do? Because this is a pit. After getting all of that data, I mean, over the course of 4 years, they had like over 400 nuisance calls to that one address. It wasn't the neighborhood, it was that one address.
Yeah.
And then all of the calls for MedStar, in 3 years, they had 235 medical calls out to that location. And so we started digging and started talking with people, and ultimately got audience with, I think the guy that really made it happen was the city councilor, the guy that sits on the council for that district that really pushed, and then working with the city attorney.
So we got to sit with all of the big heads in Fort Worth and initiated a nuisance abatement on that hotel, and have been fighting to extend nuisance abatement. Really is continued to be monitored for 30 days, and anybody can white knuckle clean for 30 days, but we wanted to try and extend that longer. The good news here is that the death rate has been nil since I think last October, which is great. And the calls are dramatically reduced. So
happened in Flower Mound. Okay, great.
no,
Well,
in Fort Worth at the hotel.
Oh, Fort Worth. Okay.
Yeah, so we that was one of the advocacy things we did, was nuisance abatement on the hotel where she died.
You you guys mentioned when I first met you, and Greg, we might have had this conversation during the walk at the winning the fight thing, that you almost wish that Nicole was arrested that night.
Oh,
Very
well,
much so.
And
yeah, that story, the, the night before she died,
right.
he came to our house, and, I cooked dinner, and,
We knew she was in a relapse, and I tried to get her to rehab, and that night she said, no, mom, nothing works for me. And she just wanted to go to work she worked at a church out in Fort Worth, and she just wanted to go to work. And I thought, will you stay here where you get help? No, I'm not getting help. And so I guess when she left here, she was, I don't know if she went and got high again. I don't know what she did, but she got pulled over for erratic driving. 2 citizens had called her in, and 5 officers here in Flower Mound pulled her over. And there's video cam footage, body cam footage of them saying, I know you're under the influence of opiates. Your pupils are pinpoint. You've got paraphernalia in your car. You've been driving erratically. And they even told her, they said, listen, Trust me, it's better to get a ticket than it is to go to jail. What they did is rob her of an opportunity. Maybe, I don't know the outcome, but it did rob her of an opportunity to be scared straight or what have you. So they let her go. They said, leave your car here, call your parents. They did tell her that. She's like, yeah, I'll call my parents. She wasn't called.
I mean, they knew that we were just, a mile away.
Well, let
Yeah.
me ask you this, and the reason I'm going to ask this is just your opinion, because I know I'm thinking of like Flower Mound. It's not a low income neighborhood. It's a nice. Do you think the police are saying it's just a Flower Mound child? I don't want to arrest her, make something, or do
Well,
they?
Yeah.
you want my personal opinion? I don't know
Exactly. Yeah. Please.
how welcome this is, but I think it was white privilege.
Okay. That's
I think she
that's
was a beautiful white girl in an affluent city. She had no history of any arrest on her thing. She had a Flower Mound address.
Mhm.
Um, I mean, I hate to profile here,
right.
but I do think that played into it.
No, and that's why I asked the opinion because I've talked to people. I mean, hundreds of people, and I've been on the streets. Phoenix, L.A., downtown Dallas. And I can sit there and look at these people and I'll ask the cops, why don't you arrest them? You can see them doing something right there. And they say, honestly, it's a waste of our time because it's going to cost us money.
That's
And
what
then,
they told us.
but
And they
if,
said, we're
but
not
if,
trying to get the addicts. We want the dealers. I'm
right,
like, right, but what are you doing to help the addicts?
nothing. That's
Right.
I mean, here's the deal is that if they had have arrested her, we would have had a phone that was intact.
Mhm.
right.
Where they could have
And,
traced.
you know, like Jane said, we don't know what would have happened with her after that, but, at least they could have extracted some data
Mhm.
Yeah.
from the phone.
But
And
instead, she went to the motel, she smoked her brains out, and the guy, the young man she was with, sold her phone and wiped her laptop back to factory default. So her phone, her Apple phone, had been so corrupted that there was no data to even get off because so many people had been trying to get into it. The person that bought her phone, um, you know,
we got a bunch of emojis in about the last 4 hours of her life in text history.
mhm.
Um,
So
Well,
and
I've got to ask the question because you don't know who gave her the bad stuff. And I don't know who gave Preston the bad stuff. And I've been doing this long enough that I've met so many families that have gone through the trials, where they did know the dealer or they knew that person. And I've watched it ruin 2 years of their life, dealing with going through court cases. We just went through three here in Collin County. And, we did finally get the phone number when I was during the waterfalls. Preston's mother contacted me. And I said, I'm sure you called it. And it was a dead phone. She said, yeah. And I said, I can find out who owned the phone, but do you want to go through this? What would have happened if you knew? I mean, just as advice, maybe, or not advice, but if you knew who that person was, how would have it affected you if you knew that there's somebody that sold Nicole or gave her the drugs? Me personally, I would have vengeance. That's the way I would feel. And so,
I think I definitely would have had a venomous bone in me,
yeah,
want to get back or get. I don't know if it actually would have been helpful
right,
because I think the reality is no matter what, the outcome is never what is going to be justified result, right? Um, okay, so somebody gave your kid the bad stuff that killed him. Okay, well, I want him to have life. Well, number one, that's not going to happen.
yeah,
Okay, well, then I want him to have 25 years. So that's not going to happen.
yeah,
So then you're like, okay, well, they got 5 years. Well, like, okay,
not
that's
cool.
for killing somebody,
Yeah,
for killing somebody, murdering somebody.
So, it's like, is that even a better option? I don't know. Is there some kind of validation in that? Our brain has to kind of get there on its own.
and I can honestly say I feel blessed that I don't know who it is because I don't have to go through that.
Well, and I think in my personal journey in this, which is just personal, I've settled in because I have faith, but God took her. God saw what was coming her way, and He saved her from her suffering, and God saved me from my suffering. although I don't even know the extent to what that suffering would have been to this day of mine. But I have to trust that God's doing what he sees as the best overall. I
I'm
cannot
glad,
take it at him. That's the only place where I can land for me.
I'm glad you said that, Jane.
His mercies are,
He stopped you from your suffering.
Yes.
yeah.
And
Yeah.
I never
Yeah,
thought of it
what
that
if
way.
she had just overdosed and, ended up brain dead or
Yeah.
had severe brain damage that she had to live the rest of her life
Right.
like that?
But like, think about that for a
And,
second, like process that, as Preston's father, like maybe God saved you from your suffering.
Yeah, I never looked at my own suffering. I never looked at it that way.
Yeah. I mean, he is a loving God and that's what he does, you know?
so, Mike, I want to go back to the hotel
Okay.
because Jane didn't mention, but, maybe was it like the first of this year? This other lady reached out to Jane and she had a daughter that was dating the guy that
Oh,
was in the room with Nicole when she passed. And Jane, kind of counseled her a little bit along those lines and said, just get her away from him. And I don't, there's always that lingering thought, well, I think that's the guy that really killed her
Yeah.
because he sat there and smoked with her. They planned it. But ultimately, you know, he was staying in the room next door to where Nicole passed with this girl. And I mean, God's grace through Jane's talking with this mom, they got her away from him. He's in jail right now.
you got 5 years.
Yeah, you know,
He'll do a year and a half.
well, maybe, but at least he's off the street.
Yeah.
Yeah, and
I'm sure, I feel pretty certain that it won't change him. He's not going to be rehabilitated.
No.
But
who knows?
you know,
The DA actually told me, he called me, he said, okay, well, we got him 5 years. He's starting today. And he challenged me to think a little bit because he said, maybe in this 5 years he'll actually clean up. Maybe he'll find God. Maybe he'll change his ways.
That's the only answer is find God, because we know that prisons and jails don't rehab people. Uh,
Yeah.
and I don't like the way the system works. And even in our state, we have the murder charge. The very first conviction we had in McKinney, they gave her 25 years. 10 of it was for the murder, 15 of it was for the manufacturing and delivery of fentanyl. Why do you get more time for delivering than the murder? And I mean, so and Frankie, Frankie, y'all met
yeah,
Frankie, and they gave that guy, he was before the murder charge, but he got 4 or 5 years. And and I remember the DA said something like, well, he had alcohol in his system, so we don't know if it was the alcohol or the fentanyl that killed him. And I've always said this is a defense lawyer's dream case because he can go reasonable doubt with anything. But I mean,
But I do want to say, I think good things are coming. I think good things are happening. I mean, the whole fentanyl act has happened. I think they're coming down on the precursor drugs, and I think there's really positive movement.
boats
You
out
know,
in
yeah,
the Gulf of America.
getting bombed.
oh, did you see the 1,300 barrels?
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. I mean, I think where it's on the TV now, there's a fentanyl commercial.
Yes.
We're talking about these things, and I think I'm proud of that.
Yeah.
You know,
We're finally getting people aware of it, where in the past administration there was no talk about it. And I've always told people, even Sarah, when she goes, what's the biggest thing we need to do? And I said, we need to make people aware. And like going back to what we first talked about, the stigma and shame. That's why nobody talked about it. It's because it's like everybody that I've ran into, I've done this for nearly 5 years. Everybody just says, these are just drug addicts. Don't worry about them. Even people I knew, it's like, I didn't know he was a drug addict, but he made that choice. So it cost him his life. So I
so
mean, we deal with that stuff. And
shame killed Nicole long before fentanyl did.
yeah, so I mean, that's why we're doing this video is I applaud you guys because it's hard to find people that do get out there and do something. And we don't all have to do the same thing, but it's just amazing. And I want to help the people because I've always said since Preston has died, on the low end, 450,000 people have died of fentanyl. And that's since January 5th of 2021. And
That's young, age 18, 14 to.
18 to 45. And
Mhm.
and I've always said that's a low number. And we talked about this with Tina on that call.
Yeah.
So the hospitals aren't reporting the right numbers. And I've been to the Indian reservations, throughout the national parks and everything. They lose people, thousands constantly across America,
Mhm.
and they don't report those. And so the numbers are already low, but we've got, with the numbers there's 4.5 million people. I always say this, that are victims as well. 450,000 people, 10 people to every family. You guys have a huge family. I've met your son. I've met everybody. They're all affected. So who's helping these people out? And we're the ones suffering. It's the largest group, and we're the biggest voice out there. And we have to make people aware. And it's it's
But
sad.
we also have to, and I'm just speaking to parents agreed, we have to not pressure ourselves to do that, but like just organically take it on as it comes without the pressure of, oh, I'm supposed to be doing this, because grief looks different for everybody.
You're right. You're right. And I did. I mean, when I did the waterfalls, I did the reading of everybody's names, and I did ask for payback, for reading the names. And I just said, the only payback I ask for is that maybe once in your life, share your loved one's story. Even if it's 10 years from now, just share your story one time. And I can't guarantee it, but I think it might save a life. And I think that's the best that we can do. I mean,
Right.
I'm I'm an addict to show the awareness. I've
Well,
gone overboard, but
and I
it's
think this is our, this is our opportunity to change the generational pattern of hiding things for our future generations. Um, and that's why I talk about it with my kids, and I tell my kids, talk about it with your children. I mean, this is nothing to be ashamed of. This is that we have to talk about it in order to change the trajectory of it in our own family system.
yeah. And I remember meeting with Ryan when we did the lunch, your son. And I've always told people, I said, they always say, how do we get involved and talk at schools? And I always say, I would love for siblings to go out and talk. I'm not promoting Ryan or anything like that, but I'm always just saying, Ryan's what, 25, 27, and 30 years old?
Pretty
30.
now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, I mean, they're going to relate to him more than they're going to relate to some old guy like me and Greg up on stage, sometimes.
I think there's the public talking or speaking, there's going to Washington, there's so many layers, but we've done other things too. I mean, we've worked with our town to create a task force. I've done podcasts, we've done some Christian outreach videos on YouTube. You can just do it on social media. You can
Yeah.
make a post on Facebook. It can be minor. We've created a fairy tree in our neighborhood, and it has like a lending library, but it has chalk. And Nicole loved to draw. She loved fairies. She loved children, and so this is a space in our little neighborhood that has a little fairy tree with these little trinkets underneath it. And there's a sign there. It says it's an interactive space to create awareness for mental health and addiction. And I kind of, this was a brainchild of a close acquaintance of mine and friend of mine to kind of create this space. Families love it. They go there, they color, they have family time together. So it doesn't have to be going to the White House. It can just have somewhere or some way where you're just having that conversation.
Mike, it's a great place. It gives us an opportunity to go down there and express ourselves. But the people that come by and are curious, we've talked to so many, Jane, I can't tell you how many people she's talked to. Just people from our very local community that, walk their dogs
Yeah,
or,
and at Christmas time, we
yeah.
put a purple Christmas tree and invite people to put ornaments on for someone that is struggling or is recovered or that they've lost, just to keep this above the water, above the surface, right? So, however someone chooses to do it, every little bit helps.
If you don't mind, because of what you're talking about there in your own city, can you share that? Send me some information on that, like even
Yeah.
Yeah,
just
I'll do a plug right now. It's on Google Maps. You can just look up Nicole's Fairy Tree and maps will take you there.
Well, anything you have, because at the end of the video, I'll attach it to it. That way
Yeah.
people can see it as well.
Yeah,
I
you
want
can find it on Google or you can find it on Facebook at, Nicole's Fairy Tree.
okay.
And I want to say, like, some of the beauty from
I
ashes.
gotta write it down because I'm old.
Yeah, I have to be able, I'm big on gratitude and seeing the good even when it's dark, but like there's been so much beauty that come from the ashes of this, just in the relationships I've made and the people I've met. I'm sure you can attest to this. Greg mentioned earlier a friend that helped us out at MedStar, is the same friend that kind of was the brainchild of this fairy tree. And like these are people that have like made an impact in my
Mm.
system forever. Like they're a part of who I am. Messages on Facebook, people that just reach out. There's just, as awful as it is, there's just been a lot of good too.
There's a lot of good people out there and a lot of good families that we've all
There's a lot
lost.
of beautiful people out there.
And
And honestly, Nicole was one of them. And I think people who struggle with mental health and addiction are like, they are the most beautiful people, you
Yeah.
know, because they're so deep watered.
and I've always told, because I've talked at recovery centers, and when I meet people that are in recovery, and I was, like I said earlier, I was an addict back in the 80s to drugs. And I always said, when I meet an addict, the mentality, they love that drug so much that they will do anything in the world for that drug or drink whatever it is. But here's the thing that I've always seen is they're still loving when they get clean and sober. And where do they turn that love into helping other people? So I said, these are the most amazing people. They have that love. They get addicted to that love, whether it's for a drug or now it's to help other people. So I always say, I would rather have an addict on my side loving somebody than, somebody that doesn't care. So, I mean, that's my feelings, but it's amazing the way these addicts are, and they love, and they can turn that love into something good, and we have to share that and make sure that they're not distinguished as bad people. That's my biggest thing.
They're just humans that carry
Mm.
a lot of pain and they don't know what to do with it. And so if we can show up for them in some way, either in their while they're alive
Right.
or after they've gone, we still need to show up for them and speak for them. They deserve that.
Well, thank you guys so much, and
Yeah, you know what, Mike? I just want to mention just
go
two
for it.
things that, I mean, we're kind of involved in this, and I think there are still things out there that need to be addressed. You and I have talked about, thinking back to Nicole's traffic stop, we need to look at the field sobriety testing.
Yeah.
It's not the same as alcohol.
Yeah.
I mean, would a cop say, looking at somebody, smelling the alcohol, it's better to just let you go than to send you to jail. Um, no, they wouldn't do that. And so I think that's one thing that, I've talked to our local representative. Everybody is so resistant about really taking that on.
Yeah.
But it's something that I think needs to be addressed.
You're you're 100% right. And Jane, back to that call we had that Saturday where you and Tina and I were on that little Zoom call. It's the sobriety test. You're right. I mean, they can't smell fentanyl on you. They can't smell anything like that. And I bring it up and I talked to that judge that's on the Dallas Opioid Task Force. And they asked what was the gap between the sheriff's office and the judge. And I said the biggest gap is nobody tests for fentanyl. Even if a cop pulled you over and brought you down to the police station and said, I'm going to do a blood test on you, and they test you, and I'm doing 100% fentanyl, and they take blood from me. They're not testing for fentanyl. They're testing for opioids, other opioids. They're not testing for fentanyl. So I've always said everybody has to test for it. Hospitals aren't testing for it. And that's so you're right. I mean, it's the only thing we can do is you just shared your voice, and maybe one police officer tomorrow, maybe we'll see this down the road, and he'll pull somebody over and say, you know what? I remember that Nicole girl. And maybe if I arrest this person and I found some foil in the back seat or whatever, I can take her in, and hopefully the parents don't come bail her out tomorrow.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know, I mean that's a miracle, I think, in my eyes. Something like that, something as simple as that.
Yeah. And the other thing that, gosh, Jana and I have talked so much about it, when Nicole, she was sober for 6 months, and when she relapsed, the protocols at sober living, it's you pack your bags, get out. You can't come back.
Hit the road, Jack.
And,
Don't come back. Yeah.
I think that in, the addiction, mental health realm, that there needs to be some more uniform, comprehensive planning for relapse. That's part of addiction.
Yeah.
And, to make sure that each person that comes in there has a relapse plan.
Yeah.
Who are we going to call first? Because we want to let people know so that you can get help.
Yeah.
And it's just, it's kind of standard procedure.
Well, for Nicole, they didn't call me until over 24 hours after she had already relapsed. And at that point, she's got a fentanyl brain. She's been using for almost 2 days, and there's no reaching that. It's hard. And so to be kicked out as a 19-year-old, I can't fathom the shame that she was flooded with, to just, what do you do? But go back to the drugs. You can't, I think it just takes a really emotionally intelligent and mature, healthy brained person to come home and say, hey, I need help.
The sad thing is there's not a lot of help at the state level and government level.
Right.
And Stephanie, we've all been down to Austin a million times testifying. And, it's sad that Texas is 49th in the country for mental health and adolescent addiction. There's like one place now for indigent people, the Phoenix House down in Austin. Everything else is shut down. And, it's sad that we're sitting on $1.8 billion. I think 200 million's already gone through. It's just sitting there earning interest. And I know that being down there at Congress testifying and everything, they want to give all the money to universities and hospitals for prevention. I'm like, okay, why would you give a hospital a grant for prevention? They don't want prevention. They want the business. And what do the colleges know? I mean, so I'm hoping that maybe with, the new drug czar, that we can help get some policies made. And we all know that jails and prisons don't rehabilitate people. We know that. And but we need, I mean, my honest opinion, God is the way to go. I mean, I've said that a million times, but I can't go to a 17-year-old out on the streets that's shooting up and say, just find Jesus. They're gonna be like, whatever, So I think it's us. We've said this a million times. We're the biggest advocates we can be. We can sit there and say, look at me. I'm Greg and Jane. We lost our daughter. Listen to me just once. That's all we can do.
So we need to be their voice now that they're no
Exactly.
longer,
Yeah.
because they live inside of us, and so we carry on their voice. And this was the fight we were given.
And we are the voice. Now it just needs to be heard more. And I think we have a new administration in and new people in. You were there. You were at all. You
I
were
was
there.
there.
You were there with all those people, with Ann and everybody
Yeah.
else. So I mean,
It was firsthand. It was wonderful. So
we need our
I
voice.
appreciate your time and
Thank you
giving
guys so
us
much.
time to tell our story.
Thank you. And send me all the information on everything you guys
Yeah, we will.
and we'll post it on there and I'll send it to you guys. But love you guys and we'll see. And Greg, we got a call in a couple of weeks.
Yeah, a couple of weeks. I'll talk to you again.
Okay. Y'all have a good evening.
Take
Yeah,
care.
take care. Bye.